Joining me today on Impact Catalyst is JC Pritchett, and we're talking about their new social justice hub, their Legacy Center. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me, Joe. Glad to be here.
So this is quite an interesting project. Tell us a little bit about it.
I got elected in November of 2018 as the president of an organization called the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. And the headquarters is at 2900 First Avenue South, which is in an interesting place now in our city. When they got the building in 1990, Mayor Fisher was the mayor. They got it in a grant. And so that space now is uniquely in an African-American community and in the Grand Central District, where there's a lot of development going on. The trolley is a block away and there's a lot of traffic. And so I really was propelled to see how we could use the space because it's over 4,000 square feet in the middle of such a unique community. And in a city like St. Petersburg, it has to be collaborations, partnerships, and working on initiatives and strategies together because we're such a diverse city.
So what's the house been used for over the last number of years? Is it just sort of been in waiting?
1990, they moved in. It's a two-story piece of property that has two porches, and it's that craftsman style that's over in the Kenwood area. And it's built in 1925, and different leaders used it for different initiatives and programs based on what their interest was and also what was going on in our community. And so when I'm elected in 2018, we had just fought to get Amendment 4 passed. We just had a close race for governor. But most importantly, I had spent the summer in Cambridge at a program called the Executive Leadership Program that brought divinity students and business students together at Harvard to work on ways to collaborate and partner. And the program was called Making Change. And so I really had more in my mind that summer and with the Amendment 4 and some other things that were going on, how important it is if people from different corners of our communities work together. And so when I took it over in 2018, food pantry and some other items were being held or used from there. And food pantry was not my interest initially. My interest has always been a social justice kind of foundation. And especially after the conversation that I had at Harvard in June, I really saw it as an opportunity. I mean, Joe, you don't get a chance in your hometown many times to get a big building dropped in your lap in the middle of town that you can use for good. And so after the Harvard experience and then after the Amendment 4 success at that time, the elders came to me in November. They were like, will you consider running for president? I ran, I won. And so there's a heavy weight and there was a heavy commitment, but I knew the space has to be used by people who have diverse backgrounds and experiences, but at the end of the day, they want to improve our city, our state, and our country.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about the physical structure of it. So I know you're doing you're raising some funds. I've seen some nice renderings and the vision that you have for it. What's the state of the building now, and what's your vision for what you hope to get it to, assuming you can raise the funds necessary? We
got a great pro bono rendering from Sarah Batlock, who's at the Behar firm, award-winning firm. They did a beautiful rendering. They put a lot of time into it. We have all the details that a contractor needs. And so the cost of building at one point was 3 families living there. I refer to it in phases. So 2 families lived downstairs in 1925 and 1 family lived upstairs. So phase 1, we got done immediately so that there could be a space to operate from, have our meetings, and to greet guests. We started last Monday on phase 2, which is going to be an interesting space of co-working, special events that will allow someone to then come outside into an outdoor area where we can have outdoor events on a beautiful day in St. Petersburg. The interesting thing is that for all of our planning and all of the renderings, the day that we got the renderings, March 10th, from the firm, the next day we shut down. We have been shut down for 5 months like many persons, people in organizations, but because A, we have older memberships, and B, because our members were shutting down their synagogues and their churches and their place of worship, we really were in a situation where it made no sense to try to gather the past 5 months. But we also could not raise funds from persons who were trying to figure out where their unemployment check was going to come from, where their groceries were going to come from, if their congregation is going to meet. So for 5 months, we have done zero until last week.
Okay, and so then you have phase 2 coming next, and then a phase 3 after that. What does phase 3 look like?
It's interesting. So the pandemic made us think about what we can do together. And, I use the tagline, imagine what we can do together, because saying the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance of St. Petersburg Incorporated is a mouthful. So IMA is better. But I was thinking about that, reimagining and imagine what we can do together, because the pandemic, though it is a dark period for us, people came out of the woodworks, giving away masks, giving away food, volunteering, checking on their neighbors, which is what faith like life is anyway. And one of the things that happened, interestingly, is that I had conversations with persons who do bridge housing. I had no interest in being involved in bridge housing, but the second story unit gives us an opportunity where a family, can have their private entrance, go upstairs to a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and have dignity. And for 30 or 60, 90 days, be in a situation where it's clean, it's beautiful. The bus stop is a block away. The trolley is 2 blocks away. Walmart is 3 blocks away. If they have a car, we have a parking lot. But during the pandemic, it forced us to be creative and to look at who we could partner with and work with. And it was not on our radar, the housing piece. It's a big responsibility. I don't want to be a landlord necessarily. And there's a whole legal insurance risk when you have people staying on your property. But the second story provides a beautiful opportunity for someone during COVID to have housing, especially when we're not using phase 1 and phase 2 downstairs the way we really had planned to do this year.
So you have a pretty grand vision for bringing people together. I think it's something that has been talked about for a long time. When you see this space, how much of your work with the space do you see as offering it as a space for other existing organizations to use, and how much of it is are you going to develop programming to accomplish some of those goals?
It's going to be a combination, Joe. One, I really feel this: the space has to be used for residents of our city, because it can be a meeting and event space. And again, not to get into too many details, but we're a nonprofit. So we're not going to be in a situation where we're doing a lease or doing long-term arrangements, but we've already had many events in the space and people left a donation. And I think that's what you do when you're in a relationship with people, when you respect people. Chris King, who was the lieutenant governor nominee in 2018, he met there this year. He had a conversation with Renee Flowers about affordable housing. The Poor People's Campaign has met there many times as we were gearing up to go to DC in June. Of course, that got canceled. Poor People's March on Washington. We had a conference in January. Clergy from around the country came to St. Petersburg, and we talked about Black sexuality. And we did that in partnership with Everett College. Everett College has been a great partner and friend. They have students who need to do internship in the social justice space to get credit to graduate. So there's so many areas that we could walk into simply by opening our doors. And I believe, as a faith person and as a hometown guy, the greatest legacy we can use is to be known as the space where people can come, work on strategy, initiatives, programming at little or no cost, and lock the door behind you. And so I spoke to demonstrators since the George Floyd murder. I've spoken on a regular basis to demonstrators. They're welcome to use the space. I've met with probably half of our city council and administration. I don't believe that, and again, this goes back to our faith tradition and a prophetic tradition. You work together, Joe, and build these relationships so that when hard times come, you don't have to begin the initial stages of who's who has certain gifts, who has certain talents and resources. You already know. And so now we find ourselves in the middle of the city with a pandemic and a recession, in demonstrations in the street, in hurricane season. That's when you need allies. That's when you need collaborators and partners. And so I'm glad that we began this work before trouble. And there's always going to be different levels of trouble, different levels of experiences or engagement that we deal with. But we did a lot of difficult work ahead of time. And you know this as a business person and as an entrepreneur, it's difficult to do team building. And what I told our members when I took over, I said, are you ready for white folks, for gays, Jewish persons? Are you ready for Muslims? This organization was founded in 1925 by African American clergy. But our country today does not look like 1925. And especially in St. Petersburg, a block from where St. Pete Pride started, we have to be in a relationship with people who have different beliefs, different backgrounds, different experiences. And though that tension can be a pain, it's necessary. And that's what we did with intention. We recruited persons of different faiths, different sexual orientations. And though there is tension and though there's growing pain, that comes with maturity, and it comes with being able to say to a community, especially during a time like this, faith leaders gather on a regular basis and work together. We don't agree on every doctrine, every theology, every sacred text, but we work together to improve our community. And I think that's the best thing that we can do and leave as a legacy for our city.
I understand. Yeah, it's we always say a big principle at the Catalyst is that we think that people are the sum of their inputs, and it's important to have as diverse of inputs as you can, so that you can have the most data points when forming your thoughts and opinions and perspectives on the world. And so I think that sounds like the intention you have when you're bringing these folks together. I think a lot of people have that intention, and we always are excited to see new ways of attempting to build the successful execution of that intention, and certainly being in an attractive space. And it's nice that you have that legacy to build off of. You've got a good inertia going from and built into the history of the space. And now with these renovations and these upgrades and sort of reintroducing it and reminding the community that it's there to use, and that this is why, and that people are welcome to have these kind of conversations. Really using that as a springboard into getting that vision, turning that vision into action. Is that fair?
Yeah. About 5 years ago, we had in the fall about 7 or 8 young African American men killed in South St. Petersburg, and people didn't know each other in the spaces of faith leaders, and there weren't many people who wanted to go where the blood was on the ground and hug the mother and talk to the community. And so in the midst of us figuring out some things that were going on, pastors start meeting on Saturdays and praying. And we have prayed every Saturday at 9 o'clock since then. Hurricane, recession, we prayed for 5 years straight at 9 o'clock in the morning. And even now during the pandemic, we do it Zoom. But something else happened. I talked to Nadine Smith, the founder and executive director of Quality Florida. And we talked about the murders of transgender people. We talked about runaway gay and lesbian children. And then we also talked about the silence of the moderate or the conservative African American church. And I said to her, we should be crying when anyone's child runs away. We should be crying when anyone's child is murdered. And because we're not in a relationship, because of some doctrine and theology issues, as a fundamentalist leaning Southern town, we do a disservice. So I asked Nadine, I said, where's your office? She said, I don't have an office, I just have a laptop and a phone. I said, well, I just moved into Rising Tide, and you know what would get people riled up? And I don't know if people still say riled up, but I said, what if a Black lesbian and a Black Baptist minister shared an office? And we shared an office. We did that with intention. We worked together with intention on many initiatives that affect two different communities, which sometimes are the same community. And there's tension and there's challenging. And the resources I have are for her, the resources she has are for me. And that's what kind of city we live in, where with intention, we can create so many spaces to do work for our people. You know, I can go to, I lived in DC for 10 years. I can go to cocktail hour or receptions or galas and have a great time. But at the end of the day, if I haven't got a business card that's going to help some kid in our community find a job, or some young lady in our community get into college, or some small business get a loan, then it's all for me. It's all for a narcissistic kind of dated, outdated thinking that benefits nobody. And so a lot of people have criticized me for sharing an office and doing work with the Black lesbian. And that's sadly the world we live in, where people still have outdated notions and stereotype people. But I know the work that she's done, I know the kind of person she is, and I know that she's been a partner in the work that's important to me. And I have to be a partner to the work that's important to her. So I just lift Nadine and Equality Florida up as one example where people don't expect for the extremes to gather and to meet. And that's what happens. That's Rabbi Phil Weintraub took over at B'nai Israel. He moved here a couple years ago. I immediately reached out to him. I said, we got to get you involved in IMA. Yes, you're a rabbi. But the greatest example for me, of that interfaith experience is a photo that we have on our wall at Legacy Center. It's Dr. Martin Luther King, Rabbi Abraham Heschel, some nuns, John Lewis, and some others lead a demonstration. 2 years ago, we asked Dr. Rabbi Heschel's daughter, Dr. Susanna Heschel, a professor at Dartmouth, to come to town. And again, in partnership with the museum, the director, Elizabeth Gelman, and University of South Florida, we brought Dr. Susanna Heschel to town, standing room only in the ballroom, because people wanted to hear from her, but also see Black and white Jews and Jewish and Christian communities together. And so we have to continue, especially during the pandemic, look for ways not to retreat, but to partner and collaborate and to work with someone who doesn't look like us or think like us. Because there's too many voices, Joe, that want us divided. They want us to at each other's necks. They want us to think about the worst in us. And so I want the Legacy Center to be a place where people walk in the door, they have a coffee, they take a meeting, they do a workshop or do a training with someone who doesn't look like them in order to improve our city. And that's the greatest gift I think we can give. The space is available for our city to use.
I certainly appreciate your spirit of innovation and inclusion. And we'll include the details on how to learn more about the Legacy Center in the video down below. It's always good to spend time with you, JC, and we'll keep watching and keep following your work.
Thanks, Joe. I'll see you soon. I appreciate it.